Okay, I want to talk about my very favorite aspect of college football, and that would be special teams. And I know I'm completely biased, and I'm probably the only person that it's their favorite, but it is. Okay, so I found your section on special teams incredibly validating and very, very interesting. I think one of the things that Coach Napier misses the mark on is when he explains or tries to explain to fans that Florida special teams actually are very good, that if you look at our statistics, we're actually great, but that fans only remember a couple of bad plays. And, I said this to you before I went on the air, but I truly feel very gaslit by the comment that, like, no, I don't know what you're seeing, but if you really knew what you were talking about, you would know that Florida special teams are very good, because they aren't, right? But your analytics in the magazine prove that they are not. I found your starting field position. I honestly did not expect Florida to have the worst starting field position in the SEC, but they did last year, right?
Yep. So there's a reason Florida just added a new assistant coach on special teams. It's not because special teams were perfect, and it's okay to. This is one of the things I think
Yeah,
Napier struggles with sometimes. Is it's okay to be honest with your fan base and say, "Yeah, that was really terrible, and we're going to get it fixed."
that's what we
Now, you don't want to say
prefer,
we're going
actually, right? Like,
to.
I prefer
Sure.
acknowledgement of the problem.
Well, and you can't fix it until you acknowledge it. Now, the fact that they brought in a new coach means they've acknowledged it. But
Right.
last year, Florida's drives all started 73.6 yards from the end zone. So they were worse off, or they were better off if they just took a fair catch on every kickoff than if they ran it back. And you saw this a lot where they would make bad decisions on return kickoffs, or where you'd have a penalty on the kickoff and all of a sudden you get pinned back. And the penalty is just as bad, right? I mean, if
Right.
you get pinned at the 12, you basically have a negative value in terms of the points you're going to score
Yeah.
on that particular on that particular drive. And so that's sort of the point that I was making is Florida was 0.22 points worse than average on every offensive possession than the average SEC team. But if you played a Texas A&M team who was 0.44 points better per possession over the course of a game, because they were only starting 64.5 yards from the end zone. Well, now you've got this huge differential. So South Carolina made a lot of hay on those sorts of things. Alabama made a lot of hay. Tennessee made a lot of hay. Teams like Florida, Arkansas, Missouri, and LSU had bad field position. LSU had the offense to overcome it. But at the
Sure.
same time, the reality is that Florida's just giving up points on kickoffs, giving up points on punts. So, you think about the major gaffes, like the fire drill against Arkansas,
Mhm.
where I still don't know how the clock didn't run out on that one, or the two guys with the same number,
Yeah.
or the guy not knowing the rule and leaping up over the personal protector for the punter. Like, those are the major gaffes that keep a drive going. And considering that Florida's defense couldn't stop anybody, all of those ended up in points.
Sure.
But to me, that's not where special teams actually wins. Like a punter's going to shank something every once in a while. A
Sure.
field goal kicker is going to miss a kick. You're going to have an offsides penalty that's kind of stupid. Maybe somebody's going to have a false start. Like, those
Yeah.
things will happen and are sort of normal type things
Mhm.
that occur. But if they happen every single game to a point where you can look at numbers and say,
I
you're the
think
worst in the SEC, now
right.
all of a sudden it's systemic and it needs to be fixed. It's not just major gaffes. It's little gaffes on every play and sort of death by paper cut.
Well, and then the issue there is that if they are continually happening, it's either A, that your team is undisciplined, or B, that you don't give special teams the time and energy that it warrants, right? Because it's one third of your game here. And I think that that is where fans were so frustrated last year. And, we have a great, Smack was a great field goal kicker. We have a great punter. Are they going to miss things? Are they human? Absolutely. But both of them are actually very proficient at their job on the whole. But there's so many other aspects to special teams. And again, we can forgive a false start. But when you add them up over the course of the season, if you're getting the same number of false starts as you are in the first game, by the sixth game, that's that's a that's a bigger issue. But that issue does have to be acknowledged, right? To be fixed.
Sure. I mean, I think that. So what I would say is that Napier's brought in a new special teams coach,
Right.
so he's at least acknowledged that there's things that need to change.
Yeah.
Now he's not acknowledging it publicly, and I don't know that
Sure.
that necessarily helps his cause,
Right.
but I do have a little respect for somebody who's going to take the bullets for his own staff members and his own
Yeah,
players in some capacity as well,
yeah,
especially in the middle of the season. Like I don't expect him to go throw smack under the bus and
right.
just go, yeah, he did a terrible job today. Like I don't expect that.
Sure.
But I do expect, hey, we need to improve in all aspects of special teams. We're looking at it. These are the specific areas where we want to improve, and we're going to make sure we improve in 2024. You would expect him to say that.
Yeah.
I think the big thing is if you so, and this is what I said coming out of the Utah game last year, and I felt this way all year, is Napier came here selling operational excellence. Like that was the thing. It's like this guy has an army. This guy has a plan. He's got YouTube clips out there where he knows exactly what he's going to call when he's at the 32-yard line against a specific type of defense and a specific defensive coordinator when he's got skill at the X and the Z position at wide receiver. Like he knows exactly what he's going to do. He's got all that stuff mapped out. And then you can't get the right number of people on the field for a field goal attempt, right? And so what that suggests to me is not necessarily that special teams is some special cluster. What it suggests to me is that the organization itself is clustered.
Yeah.
And that clustering and that lack of responsibility and that sort of dirtiness that goes throughout, or the just the lack of discipline that goes in that special teams, has to proliferate out. It's not like there's just one area that doesn't have that, because if it wasn't tolerable, or if it's tolerable there, then it will be tolerable in other places. And I think that's the thing that worries fans more than anything. And that's why you said how it looks. You said earlier in the episode, how it looks might be more important than the actual results. To me, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but to me, that's what you're saying, is you're saying it needs to not be dirty. It needs to
Yeah.
not be operationally poor, because that's sort of the first step to giving us hope.
I'll get right back to chatting with Will, but first, I want to give some major love to Meldon Law, as they are the official injury law firm partner of the Florida Gators. They have been serving North Central Florida for over 50 years, and they handle personal injury cases consisting of car, truck, motorcycle, pedestrian, dog bite, slip and fall, and more. Consultations for all matters are completely free. You may not need them today, but do me a favor and follow them on social media using the links in the description. I appreciate Meldon Law for their support, and I hope that you guys will check them out too. Yeah, well, so we were standing on the sidelines during the Arkansas game, and I don't know if you've ever met Eric Wilbur, but Eric Wilbur is a hothead and has a very large mouth, and he was screaming from the sideline to the unit of what they were supposed to do. He was actually closer to the unit than Couch was, and I am over here going, "Oh my gosh, we're staying next to the coaches' wives," and he's like, "Well, they should tell him to do their damn job," But there was no actual coach near that special teams unit, and we talked about it afterwards at nauseum with specialists from Florida from multiple coaching eras who were all like, that was the most mind-blowing part to them, because they always had a coach. Under Meyer, it was a strength and conditioning coach, the assistant coach, Frank. I don't know if you remember him, but his job was the clipboard and was counting the 11 and was like, okay, there's 9 of you here. There's 1 of you in on that play, and my punter's in the net over there, or my kicker's in the net or whatever, and knew exactly where everybody was at every given time and signaled to them when they needed to go on there. It was never a player's responsibility to manage that unit. And after that happened, Napier made a comment in a press conference where he said something like, well, the player called the wrong play and it's a young guy, so we're going to cut him some slack or something like that. But like the fact that there was a player responsible for making sure that the right unit got on was maybe the most mind-blowing part of all of that. But so do you think that they are putting more emphasis on it? Do you think Joe Houston coming in is the sign that Gator fans need? We're not going to get acknowledgement with it publicly. We understand that, but so now it's going to be different.
I'm doubtful. I've been burned before thinking things are going to get better. The thing that disturbed me about the Arkansas thing more than there not being a coach there, and I hadn't heard the story about Eric yelling on the sideline there, but the thing that worries me more about that is they had a timeout right before the play to Boardingham. So it's not just that there isn't a coach who's there telling them what to do in the heat of the moment. It's that they got a play call. They know what's coming. They know that they don't have another timeout. They know that if it's not a first down, they got to rush out on the field. If it is a first down, then they have time. Like there are whatever those options are need to be communicated through.
Yeah.
You shouldn't need a player or a coach on the field to tell anybody what to do in the heat of the
In that
moment.
moment.
Everybody should be prepared. I mean, look, I coach 12-year-old baseball, and we get ticked off at our players when they don't know where to throw the baseball because they're supposed to think about that before
Mhm.
the ball's hit and before
Yep.
the pitcher even throws the ball.
Yep.
And in many ways, special teams is like that. If you got guys on special teams, you have to have repped in practice
Yeah.
these sorts of things. So not just running out and getting aligned, but
Yeah.
also what situations are you going to run out? What if they get a first down? What if they're short of a first down? Like, what's the minimum amount of time we need to get out there and get one off? What happens if the long snapper is injured? Who's his
Yeah.
backup? Like repping all of those things in practice. To me, that's the stuff that a guy like Houston brings. And we'll see it, or I mean, we'll see real early on. I expect a lot of fair catches on kickoffs just because they have not been very good there. And I think you
Yeah.
actually gain advantages by just saying, look, we'll start at the 25. If they keep taking the ball out 3 yards deep in the end zone, I'm going to be about as apoplectic as anybody because I'm just tired of seeing them get tackled at the 15-yard line
Right.
and giving up 10 yards of field position because they're returning a ball 3, 4, or 5 yards deep in the end zone. Maybe if you're down by like 14 and you got 3 minutes left, okay, now you can take one out because getting a skill player out in the open field has
Yeah.
some value there for potential to pop one. But
Sure.
doing it in the first quarter when everything's 0-0, you're just giving up points for no reason. And I think coaching those finer points will be the things that if you like, I don't know that you're going to necessarily be able to look at it and go, oh, like 11 people on the field should be the bare minimum. And I'm not going to give them
Right.
kudos for doing the same thing that every other coach is able to do and go, things have been fixed. It's going to be the little things
Yeah.
that give them extra value that I go, okay, now special teams are fixed. And that's sort of what the article was about.